Okay, we're back, race fans, with step 1, building the T2 SUPERSTOCK. I know installing bushings may sound mundane, but it's a very important step in building a competitive car. Okay, first we'll get into the else in a minute. Let's start with the stock bushings, the little red ones here. You don't need to do any reaming. They can just be installed as they are. Just keep in mind there's a couple of thousandths or so difference in the thickness within tolerance. The one measures about 0.60, 0.61 in width, and the other cavity is like 0.62, 0.63. So just be consistent. I'm installing the larger one in the rear, and that's my that'll be my standard. Now take a little wire brush and just roughen the inside quickly of the bore, the inside diameter. You can do the same with the OD of the bushing if you like, and just insert that, and that gives you it'll just grip it tighter, and you shouldn't need anything additionally. If you're not in the land of Oz and they don't mind if you run just a little bit of glue, or you can use paint around the lip there, that'll also help keep it in place, but shouldn't need anything really. Alright, now the elves. The elves are a little bigger diameter at 0.160, and a ball bearing is 0.1575 for 4 millimeter. They had to be a bit bigger to properly fit the gray Panther chassis because that material had less shrinkage. So you have to keep these things in mind when you're going to make parts of different materials. Anyway, these will be pre-installed here for the kits because I'm machining them on my lathe, just the couple of thousandths necessary. If you want to install them yourself, you can take some readily available equipment, and I'll show you how to do it quite easily. Take an old G Plus chassis, just space the rear end so you remove all the excess play out of it. Take your elf. We've already machined this one for the sake of time. The front wheels will help keep the chassis vertical. Give it a couple of taps, then on an old credit card, finish, and that will make it perfectly square. Then take your little test track. You can use sandpaper, or handy, I like to use a little nail file. Get this in the camera. Turn it on. You want to remove the burr on one end. You can do both, but at least one end. Or you can use sandpaper. Okay, and remove that. If you don't have a pinion puller, you can quite easily just take a tweezers and slide it in there. Put your thumb so the bushing doesn't go flying, and just slide it, and that will pry it off quite nicely. Okay, we're going to take that long tool, take our little tool, and again we're going to just roughen the inside a bit with a wire brush. And insert the bushing, and it's a perfect fit. Okay, and it doesn't take long at all to sand or remove a couple of thousandths, and again, something everyone has at home. The axle is the perfect diameter. It's 0.62. It will not change the bushing diameter, the inside diameter, and that's something we wanted to cover. I had a hollow grip tight axle here. If you don't have a reamer and you want to make sure that the bushing is the right size, if you can slide a hollow grip tight axle through it like so. It's perfect. Okay, so now the reason we need to take that burr off is to make sure the bushing is fully seated inside the bulkhead, inside that counterbore. Alright, how do we do that? How are we going to measure that? Well, I made a little tool here that will contact only the bushing, and they're usually 470 using this. So use a measurement as your standard. If 470 is the standard, let's check another one here. See, that still has a little burr on it, so we'll take that one out. That's 474. Or if you decide to leave it, you would just mark that bulkhead 474, and you'll know to adjust the spacing accordingly if you ever need to replace the bulkhead on that car or space another armature for it. Now again, if you don't have a tool like that, you can just use an old armature, either cut the shaft or push it through on one end so it doesn't, you don't want it to stick out past the bulkhead. Take an old gear spacer, old axle spacer, and put it on the other end, and what that does is it keeps the shaft nice and square to give you consistent measurements like so. Okay, now for the front bulkhead, time is getting low. This had a very short comm, so we took you need a longer reach here obviously, so I put a spacer and a little brass washer. You can use one from a G+ arm, an old motor, and again keeps the shaft nice and square. I have to make sure it's in the camera here, and that'll let you know exactly where you're at, where that bushing is positioned. Getting these all mixed up here between front and rear. They're all over the place. Here's a stock rear one. You can see same measurement, 1192. Okay, so again, little things like roughening the inside, it can make quite a difference in the holding power as opposed to two smooth surfaces. And it'd be good if you did the bushing as well, just like so. Just roughen it up, and you'll feel the difference when you insert it. That's all it takes. We're almost out of time. I think we've covered everything in this session. In part 2, we'll install the brush barrels, but we have finished bulkheads. Really no glue is necessary, and the elves, again, the best bushings that you can use for SUPERSTOCK or any car that you're running bushings in. They will not melt. You'll melt the entire chassis down before it will even begin to touch the elves. Extremely dimensionally stable and chemically resistant. So that about covers installing the bushings. I hope that's been helpful, and we'll see you for phase 2.